Imagine a film released in 1969 about a working-class boy and a kestrel hawk. Critics dismissed it as too bleak. Distributors predicted failure. Yet today, it's hailed as one of Britain's greatest cinematic triumphs. How did a modest story about a boy and a bird come to define an entire era of British filmmaking? Before we reveal why Ken Loach's Keys changed everything, we need to journey through 50 years of British cinema, a world of ruthless gangsters, haunting psychological thrillers, whimsical fantasies, and audacious experiments that reshaped the art of film forever. These are the 15 British films that didn't just entertain, they challenged, inspired, and revolutionized cinema itself. Stick around till the end. Because every single entry on this list will make you see British filmmaking in a whole new light. And by the final reveal, you'll understand why Kes isn't just a movie. It's a masterpiece. Don't forget to hit subscribe to Vintage Uncovered for more cinematic treasures and hidden gems from Britain's golden screen. Number 15, The Long Good Friday, 1980. The British gangster film underwent a seismic shift in 1980. John Mackenzie's The Long Good Friday arrived at a pivotal moment in British history, capturing London on the cusp of Thatcherite transformation. Bob Hoskins, in what many consider his career-defining role, portrays Harold Shand, a mob boss attempting to transition from organized crime into legitimate business dealings. What distinguishes this film from its American gangster counterparts is its distinctly British sensibility. Shand isn't a romanticized mobster, he's a businessman whose criminal empire faces collapse as I-ray bombings threaten his plans to develop London's Docklands. The film's exploration of ambition intersecting with political violence creates a narrative tension that remains unmatched in the genre. The cinematography by Phil Mayhew captures a London most films ignored: the industrial wastelands of the Thames, the brutalist architecture, the working-class pubs where violence simmers beneath superficial civility. Francis Monkman's synthesizer score became iconic, punctuating the film's relentless pacing with electronic urgency. Hoskins delivers a performance of remarkable nuance. His Harold Shand exudes confidence and menace. Yet the film's final shot, a sustained close-up on Hoskins's face as his character realizes his fate, remains one of cinema's most powerful wordless moments. The film doesn't glorify its violence. Instead, it presents organized crime as a business destined for obsolescence, rendered irrelevant by forces beyond its control. The Long Good Friday influenced every British crime film that followed, from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels to Layer Cake. Its commercial success proved British audiences craved authentic portrayals of their own criminal underworld, not sanitized American imports. Number 14, The Ladykillers, 1955. Ealing Studios perfected a particular strain of British comedy, dark, subversive, and deceptively sophisticated. The Ladykillers, directed by Alexander McKendrick, represents the studio's finest achievement in this mode. Released in 1955, the film stars Alec Guinness as Professor Marcus, the leader of a criminal gang posing as musicians while planning a heist. The premise appears straightforward. 5 criminals rent rooms from an elderly landlady, Mrs. Wilberforce, planning to use her house as their base of operations. But McKendrick subverts every expectation. The criminals, despite their elaborate planning, prove incompetent. Mrs. Wilberforce, played brilliantly by Katie Johnson, outmaneuvers them through sheer innocence and British propriety. The film's comedy derives from this inversion of power. Guinness's Professor Marcus believes intelligence and planning guarantee success, but he's undone by his inability to comprehend genuine decency. The supporting cast, including Peter Sellers in an early role, Herbert Lom, and Danny Green, creates a gallery of comic grotesques, each representing a different facet of post-war British society's failures. McKendrick's direction maintains perfect tonal balance. The comedy never becomes farcical, and the darkness never overwhelms the humor. The film's setting, a crooked Victorian house perched precariously above a railway line, serves as a metaphor for Britain itself. Antiquated, unstable, but stubbornly enduring. The screenplay, written by William Rose, contains layers of social commentary. These criminals represent the erosion of traditional British values, yet they're defeated by those same values embodied in an elderly woman. The film critiques both criminal ambition and the complacency of the establishment, finding humor in the collision between the two. The Ladykillers influenced British comedy for decades. Its blend of whimsy and menace, its critique of British manners, and its perfectly calibrated performances established a template that filmmakers continue to reference. Number 13. This Sporting Life, 1963. Lindsay Anderson's directorial debut shattered conventions of British cinema. This Sporting Life, released in 1963, uses rugby as a framework for exploring masculinity, class, and emotional alienation in post-war Britain. Richard Harris stars as Frank Machine, a coal miner who becomes a professional rugby player but finds success cannot resolve his deeper psychological wounds. The film emerged from the British New Wave movement, which sought to depict working-class life with unprecedented authenticity. Anderson, working from a screenplay by David Story, who adapted his own novel, rejects traditional sports movie narratives. There's no triumphant final match, no redemption through athletic achievement. Instead, we witness a man whose physical prowess masks profound emotional emptiness. Harris's performance is ferociously intense. His Machine is simultaneously brutal and vulnerable, capable of extreme violence on the field, yet desperate for emotional connection off it. His relationship with his widowed landlady, Mrs. Hammond, Rachel Roberts, forms the film's emotional core. Their inability to communicate their feelings, constrained by class expectations and emotional repression, drives the narrative tragedy. Anderson employs a non-linear structure, interweaving flashbacks with present-day sequences. This fragmented narrative mirrors Machine's fractured psyche, creating a psychological portrait rather than a conventional biopic. And the cinematography by Dennis Coop captures the industrial North with unflinching realism. The soot-blackened buildings, the cramped terraced houses, the muddy rugby pitches where men prove their worth through physical punishment. The film's depiction of rugby is deliberately unglamorous. Anderson films the matches with brutal clarity, emphasizing the sport's violence and the toll it takes on players' bodies. Success in this world means enduring pain, both physical and emotional, with no promise of lasting fulfillment. This Sporting Life influenced subsequent British cinema's approach to working-class narratives. Its refusal to romanticize poverty or athleticism, its complex portrayal of masculinity, and its formal experimentation marked it as a landmark of British filmmaking. Number 12. A Matter of Life and Death, 1946. Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, known collectively as the Archers, created some of British cinema's most visually audacious films. A Matter of Life and Death, released in 1946, combines fantasy, romance, and political allegory in a narrative that defies categorization. The film stars David Niven as squadron leader Peter Carter, an RAF pilot who should have died when his plane was shot down, but survived due to a bureaucratic error in heaven. The film's technical achievements were groundbreaking. Powell and Pressburger filmed the earthly sequences in Technicolor and the heavenly scenes in monochrome, a reversal of audience expectations that emphasized the vitality of life over the sterility of the afterlife. Jack Cardiff's cinematography exploits Technicolor's full range, creating images of almost surreal beauty. The narrative framework, Carter must argue before a celestial court for the right to continue living, allows Powell and Pressburger to explore post-war Anglo-American relations. Carter's prosecutor is an American colonist who died in the Revolutionary War, still harboring resentment against Britain. The trial becomes a debate about national character, with Carter defending not just his own life, but Britain's place in the post-war world. Yet the film never becomes didactic. Powell and Pressburger ground their fantasy in genuine emotion. Carter's love for June, Kim Hunter, an American radio operator, drives the narrative. Their relationship, formed during what Carter believed were his final moments, provides the film's emotional anchor. The production design by Alfred Junge. It creates a heaven that's simultaneously magnificent and bureaucratic, an endless stairway stretching to infinity, vast halls filled with filing systems tracking every human soul. This vision of the afterlife as a well-organized but impersonal institution reflects British anxieties about post-war reconstruction and the growing welfare state. The film's conclusion, which can be read as either genuine supernatural intervention or the hallucinations of a brain-injured pilot, allows audiences to interpret the events through their own philosophical lens. This ambiguity, rather than weakening the narrative, strengthens its emotional impact. A Matter of Life and Death demonstrated that British cinema could compete with Hollywood in technical sophistication while maintaining a distinctly British sensibility. Its influence extends through decades of fantasy filmmaking. Number 11, Peeping Tom, 1960. Michael Powell's Peeping Tom was crucified upon release. Critics denounced it as perverted and disgusting. Powell's reputation, built over decades, collapsed virtually overnight. The film disappeared from circulation for years. Yet today, Peeping Tom is recognized as one of cinema's most sophisticated explorations of voyeurism, trauma, and the act of filmmaking itself. The film follows Mark Lewis, Karl-Heinz Boom, a focus puller at a London film studio who murders women while filming their deaths. Mark's compulsion stems from his childhood. His father, a psychologist, filmed Mark's reactions to fear-inducing experiments, documenting every moment of his son's traumatized youth. Powell creates an unsettling parallel between Mark's murderous filmmaking and the audience's own voyeurism. We watch through Mark's camera, implicated in his acts. The film's opening sequence, shot from the killer's point of view as he picks up a prostitute and murders her, forces viewers to occupy the perpetrator's perspective, a technique that outraged contemporary audiences but influenced decades of subsequent horror cinema. The psychological complexity of Powell's approach distinguishes Peeping Tom from exploitation. Mark isn't simply evil. He's a damaged individual repeating the trauma inflicted upon him. His relationship with Helen, Anna Massey, a young woman who lives in his boarding house, offers the possibility of redemption. But Mark's compulsion proves too powerful. The film suggests that childhood trauma creates irreversible psychological damage, a radical position for 1960. Otto Heller's cinematography uses color with psychological precision. Reds dominate the mise-en-scène, creating an atmosphere of danger and obsession. The film's self-reflexive elements, showing film sets, editing rooms, projection booths, remind viewers that cinema itself is an act of voyeurism, with audiences paying to watch others' intimate moments. The film's destruction of Powell's career revealed British cultural anxieties about sexuality, violence, and cinema's power. By making audiences complicit in Mark's crimes, Powell violated an unspoken contract. Films could depict evil, but they must maintain clear moral distance. Peeping Tom refused this comfort. Critical reevaluation began in the 1970s, led by directors like Martin Scorsese, who recognized the film's brilliance. Today, Peeping Tom stands alongside Hitchcock's Psycho, released the same year, as one of cinema's foundational psychological thrillers, its influence visible in everything from Silence of the Lambs to contemporary found-footage horror. Number 10, The Third Man, 1949. Carol Reed's The Third Man represents the pinnacle of British film noir. Set in occupied Vienna, Divided into sectors controlled by American, British, French, and Soviet forces, the film uses its post-war setting to explore moral ambiguity in a world where traditional certainties have collapsed. The screenplay, written by Graham Greene, centers on Holly Martins, Joseph Cotton, an American pulp novelist who arrives in Vienna to meet his old friend Harry Lime, only to discover Lime has died in a suspicious accident. Martins's investigation reveals Lime faked his death and operates a black market penicillin racket that has killed dozens of children. Orson Welles appears as Harry Lime in only a few scenes, yet his presence dominates the film. His entrance, emerging from shadows into sudden illumination, remains one of cinema's most iconic moments. Welles's Lime is charming, intelligent, and utterly amoral. His famous cuckoo clock speech, delivered on a Ferris wheel overlooking Vienna, articulates a philosophy of ruthless self-interest with seductive eloquence. Robert Krasker's cinematography exploits Vienna's bombed-out architecture using Dutch angles and expressionistic shadows to create a visual landscape as morally tilted as its characters. So the film's most famous sequence, the chase through Vienna's sewers, combines claustrophobia with visual poetry, as Lime's desperate flight ends in a grid of light and shadow. Anton Karas's zither score was unprecedented. Reed discovered Karas playing in a Viennese cafe and built the entire soundtrack around his instrument. The resulting music, simultaneously cheerful and melancholic, creates cognitive dissonance that perfectly matches the film's moral ambiguity. The film's ending rejects Hollywood convention. Anna, Alida Valli, Lime's former lover, walks past Martins without acknowledging him. Martins has done the right thing by betraying Lime to the authorities, but virtue brings no reward. Greene's screenplay suggests that in a morally compromised world, there are no clean victories. The Third Man influenced every subsequent noir and spy thriller. Its visual style, moral complexity, and atmospheric use of location shooting established templates that persist in contemporary cinema. Number 9. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia redefined the epic film. Running 216 minutes in its original cut, the film chronicles T.E. Lawrence's role in the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire during World War I. But this isn't a conventional war epic celebrating heroism. Instead, Lean and screenwriters Robert Bolt and Michael Wilson create a psychological portrait of a deeply conflicted individual whose identity fragments under the pressure of historical forces. Peter O'Toole, in his breakout role, portrays Lawrence as brilliant, narcissistic, and ultimately unstable. The film charts his transformation from a junior British officer into an Arab guerrilla leader, then into a traumatized man, horrified by his own capacity for violence. O'Toole's performance captures Lawrence's contradictions, his genuine respect for Arab culture combined with his inability to fully belong to either British or Arab worlds. Freddie Young's cinematography exploited 70mm film to capture the desert's vast emptiness. The famous sequence introducing Sheriff Ali, Omar Sharif, a distant figure gradually emerging from a mirage over several minutes, demonstrated cinema's unique ability to manipulate time and space. The desert becomes a character, beautiful and merciless, reflecting Lawrence's psychological state. The film's technical achievements were staggering. Shooting in Jordan and Morocco, Lean's crew endured extreme conditions to capture authentic desert landscapes. The Battle of Aqaba sequence, Lawrence leading Arab forces in a surprise attack by approaching from the desert rather than the sea, required coordinating hundreds of extras and creating practical explosions across miles of terrain. Yet Lawrence of Arabia succeeds not through spectacle alone, but through its psychological complexity. Lawrence's breakdown after being captured and tortured subverts heroic war film conventions. His enthusiastic participation in a massacre, followed by his horror at his own actions, acknowledges the psychological damage warfare inflicts. The film refuses to provide easy answers about Lawrence's motivations or legacy. Maurice Jarre's score, combining orchestral grandeur with Middle Eastern instrumentation, it created an aural landscape as expansive as the visual one. The main theme became inseparable from the film itself, its sweeping melodies embodying both the romance and tragedy of Lawrence's story. Lawrence of Arabia demonstrated that blockbuster filmmaking could also be serious art. Its influence extends beyond cinema into how we conceptualize historical epics, anti-heroes, and the intersection of personal psychology with geopolitical events. Number 8. Great Expectations, 1946. Charles Dickens's novels had been filmed countless times, but David Lean's Great Expectations transcended adaptation to become something entirely cinematic. Released in 1946, the film distills Dickens's sprawling narrative into 118 minutes of Gothic atmosphere and psychological intensity. The film's opening sequence remains one of British cinema's most memorable. Young Pip encounters the escaped convict Magwitch in a graveyard, a scene Lean films with expressionistic intensity. The crooked tombstones, the gnarled tree branches, the sudden appearance of Magwitch's terrifying face, all combine to create nightmare imagery that establishes the film's visual language. Lean collaborated with cinematographer Guy Green to create a visual style that emphasized shadows, forced perspective, and symbolic imagery. Miss Havisham's house, with its cobweb-covered wedding feast and decaying grandeur, becomes a metaphor for obsession arrested in time. The use of miniatures and optical effects creates impossible spaces that externalize Pip's psychological state. The casting of Pip proved crucial. Anthony Wager plays young Pip, while John Mills portrays the adult version. Mills captures Pip's transformation from innocent boy to status-obsessed gentleman, then finally to a man who recognizes the hollowness of class pretension. His performance grounds the film's Gothic excesses in genuine human emotion. Martita Hunt's Miss Havisham remains definitive. She portrays the character not as a melodramatic madwoman, but as someone who has calcified her grief into a system of revenge. Her manipulation of Estella, Jean Simmons, to break men's hearts represents a perversion of maternal love that Dickens understood, but which Lean visualizes with startling clarity. The film's treatment of Magwitch's return subverts audience expectations. Pip's benefactor isn't the wealthy Miss Havisham, but the convict he helped as a child, a revelation that forces Pip to confront his snobbery and recognize that a criminal possesses more genuine nobility than the upper-class circles he aspires to join. Lean's adaptation influenced how Dickens would be filmed for decades. Its Gothic visual style, psychological depth, and willingness to embrace the novel's darkness rather than their sentimentality established a new standard for literary adaptation. Number 7. The 39 Steps, 1935. Alfred Hitchcock's The 39 Steps invented the template for countless spy thrillers that followed. Released in 1935, the film established what Hitchcock called the wrong man scenario, an ordinary individual thrust into extraordinary circumstances, forced to prove their innocence while evading both criminals and police. Robert Donat plays Richard Hannay, a Canadian visiting London who becomes entangled in a spy plot after a mysterious woman is murdered in his apartment. Accused of her murder, Hannay flees to Scotland, pursued by both police and foreign agents. The film's cross-country chase allows Hitchcock to showcase diverse British locations while maintaining relentless pacing. What distinguishes the 39 Steps is Hitchcock's mastery of suspense through editing and visual storytelling. The famous sequence where Hannay, handcuffed to Pamela, Madeleine Carroll, must maintain the pretense of being a married couple demonstrates Hitchcock's ability to extract tension from social awkwardness. The handcuffs, forcing physical intimacy between strangers, create both comedic and romantic possibilities. Hitchcock's MacGuffin theory finds perfect expression here. The 39 Steps refers to a spy organization, but the specifics of their plot matter less than the chase itself. Hitchcock understood that audiences invest in character and situation, not exposition. The film's climax at a London music hall, where Hannah finally discovers what the 39 Steps means, resolves the mystery while acknowledging its essential unimportance. The film's influence on cinema cannot be overstated. The innocent man wrongly accused, the cross-country chase, the romantic partnership forged through adversity, the climax in a public space, all became standard thriller elements. Ian Fleming acknowledged the film's influence on James Bond. Our Hitchcock himself would refine these elements throughout his career, but the 39 Steps established the formula in remarkably pure form. The screenplay, adapted from John Buchan's novel by Charles Bennett, transforms a straightforward adventure story into something more psychologically complex. Hannah isn't a trained agent, but an ordinary man forced to improvise. His survival depends on quick thinking and social adaptability rather than physical prowess, a very British approach to heroism. The 39 Steps demonstrated that British cinema could match Hollywood's technical sophistication while maintaining distinctly British sensibilities about character, class, and suspense. Number 6. Kind Hearts and Coronets, 1949. Robert Hamer's Kind Hearts and Coronets represents Ealing Studios at its darkest and most subversive. Released in 1949, the film tells the story of Louis Mazzini, Dennis Price, a disinherited aristocrat who murders his way through 8 relatives to claim a dukedom. The film's masterstroke was casting Alec Guinness in all 8 victim roles. Guinness creates distinct characters, a pompous general, a suffragette, a vicar, a banker, among others, demonstrating remarkable range while emphasizing that aristocracy is essentially interchangeable. His performance satirizes the British class system by showing that breeding guarantees neither intelligence nor virtue. Hamer's direction maintains perfect tonal control. The murders are presented without moral commentary, filmed with elegant detachment that mirrors Louis's own aristocratic refinement. When Louis arranges for a darkroom to explode, killing his photographer relative, the film treats it as merely another problem solved. This amorality, combined with Louis's witty voiceover narration, creates a comedy that's genuinely shocking in its casualness toward violence. The screenplay, written by Hamer and John Dighton, is masterfully constructed. Louis's narration, delivered with Dennis Price's impeccable diction, provides both exposition and character revelation. His self-justifications and rationalization expose the hypocrisy of a class system that measures worth by bloodline rather than merit. The film's treatment of Edwardian aristocracy is merciless. The Gascoigne family represents a ruling class rendered obsolete by social change, yet they cling to privilege through inherited wealth and title. Louis, despite his murders, proves more capable and intelligent than any of his victims. The film suggests that aristocracy's greatest crime isn't its occasional incompetence, but its systematic exclusion of talent from those lacking proper lineage. Joan Greenwood and Valerie Hobson, as Louis's 2 love interests, provide counterpoint to his schemes. Greenwood's Sibella represents passion and social climbing, while Hobson's Edith embodies moral conviction. Louis's inability to choose between them ultimately contributes to his downfall. The film's ending remains one of cinema's most perfect conclusions. Louis has committed perfect crimes, evaded justice, and achieved his goal. Then he discovers he's left his confession memoir in his cell. The final shot, Louis's frozen smile as he realizes his mistake, leaves audiences laughing at his comeuppance while acknowledging the satisfying irony. In Kind Hearts and Coronets influenced British comedy for generations. Its willingness to make murder funny, its savage class satire, and its perfectly calibrated tone demonstrated that comedy could be both hilarious and genuinely subversive. Number 5. Get Carter, 1971. Mike Hodges' Get Carter destroyed the romantic notion of the British gangster. Released in 1971, the film follows Jack Carter, Michael Caine, as he returns to Newcastle to investigate his brother's death. What he discovers, a web of pornography, corruption, and casual exploitation, reveals a criminal underworld utterly devoid of honor or glamour. Caine's performance revolutionized screen portrayals of British criminals. His Carter is impeccably dressed, soft-spoken, and absolutely ruthless. There's no working-class sentiment, no loyalty among thieves, no redemption arc. Carter moves through the film with mechanical efficiency, eliminating obstacles with minimal emotion. When he throws a man off a multi-story car park, the violence is sudden and brutal, without dramatic buildup or aftermath. Hodges filmed entirely on location in Newcastle, capturing the industrial North with documentary-like authenticity. The cramped terraced houses, grimy pubs, desolate beaches, and half-demolished neighborhoods create a landscape as bleak as Carter's mission. This isn't the London of traditional British gangster films. It's a working-class world where poverty and crime intersect without romanticism. The film's treatment of sexual exploitation was shocking for its time. Carter's investigation reveals his niece was coerced into pornographic films. How the revelation transforms his mission from revenge into something approaching moral purpose. Yet the film refuses to sentimentalize Carter's actions. He's not a noble avenger, but a violent criminal operating in a violent world. Wolfgang Suschitzky's cinematography emphasizes the industrial landscape's geometric severity. The angular architecture, concrete surfaces, and cold color palette create a visual language of alienation. The famous final scene, Carter shot on an empty beach, his body washed by waves while industrial waste pours from a pipe, reduces his death to meaningless tragedy in an indifferent landscape. Roy Budd's score, built around a simple blues-inflected theme, provides the film's only moment of romantic melancholy. The contrast between the music's coolness and the violence on screen creates emotional dissonance that enhances rather than relieves the tension. Get Carter influenced British crime cinema profoundly. Its rejection of glamour, its regional setting, and its unflinching portrayal of violence established a new standard for authenticity. The film's legacy extends beyond Britain into American cinema, influencing everything from neo-noir to contemporary crime dramas. Number 4. Brief Encounter, 1945. David Lean's Brief Encounter proves that the most powerful love stories often depict what doesn't happen rather than what does. Released in 1945, the film follows Laura Jessen, Celia Johnson, a suburban housewife whose chance meeting with Dr. Alec Harvey, Trevor Howard, at a railway station develops into a deeply felt but unconsummated love affair. The film's power derives from restraint. Laura and Alec never consummate their relationship. Their meetings consist of stolen afternoons, matinees at the cinema, tea at station refreshment rooms, boat rides on artificial lakes. Yet the emotional intensity rivals any grand passion because Lean and screenwriter Noel Coward understand that impossibility intensifies desire. Celia Johnson's performance ranks among cinema's most subtle achievements. Her Laura is unremarkable, a middle-class housewife content in her conventional marriage until she discovers the capacity for feelings she didn't know she possessed. Johnson conveys this awakening through minute facial expressions and vocal inflections. Her interior monologue, adapted from Coward's original play Still Life, reveals thoughts she can never speak aloud. Lean's direction finds visual correlatives for emotional states. Trains roaring through the station represent time's indifference to personal tragedy. The refreshment room, presided over by the gossipy Myrtle, Joyce Carey, becomes a liminal space where ordinary rules temporarily suspend. The contrast between the station's public spaces and the private emotional intensity of Laura and Alec's meetings creates a tension that sustains the entire narrative. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, used throughout the film, provides emotional expression the characters cannot voice. The music swells during moments of emotional significance, filling the space left by British Reserve. This use of pre-existing classical music to heighten romantic melodrama influenced decades of subsequent filmmaking. The film's treatment of middle-class morality is remarkably complex. Laura's husband, Fred, Cyril Raymond, is kind, unimaginative, and fundamentally decent. The film never suggests Laura should leave him. Her decision to end the affair isn't motivated by fear of discovery, but by recognition that continuing would destroy her family and ultimately herself. This moral choice, made without external pressure, demonstrates a strength of character that transcends conventional virtue. Brief Encounter endures because it depicts universal emotional truths. The experience of meeting someone who awakens dormant parts of yourself, the recognition that acting on such feelings would destroy everything you've built. The pain of choosing duty over passion, these remain as relevant today as in 1945. Number 3. The Red Shoes, 1948. Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger's The Red Shoes demonstrates that cinema can achieve operatic intensity while maintaining narrative coherence. Released in 1948, the film tells the story of Vicky Page, Moira Shearer, a young ballerina torn between her art and her personal life. The film's central conflict is established early. Boris Lermontov, Anton Walbrook, the impresario of the Ballet Lermontov Company, believes that a dancer must dedicate herself entirely to her art. When Vicky falls in love with composer Julian Craster, Marius Goring, Lermontov forces her to choose between love and ballet. This choice becomes literally fatal. On the film's centerpiece, a 17-minute ballet sequence based on Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, The Red Shoes, represents one of cinema's most audacious achievements. Powell and Pressburger use every cinematic technique available. Color, editing, set design, special effects, and choreography combine to create a sequence where reality and fantasy merge. The stage expands impossibly, characters transform, and the shoes themselves seem to possess Vicky's feet, forcing her to dance beyond exhaustion. Jack Cardiff's Technicolor cinematography exploits the format's full potential. Colors are supersaturated, almost unnaturally vivid. The red of the titular shoes dominates the palette, becoming a visual motif representing both artistic passion and destructive obsession. Hein Heckroth's production design creates a ballet world that's simultaneously realistic and fantastical. The film's gender politics are complex. Lermontov's demand that Vicky choose between art and love seems tyrannical, yet the film acknowledges the genuine conflict between artistic dedication and personal relationships. Vicky's tragedy isn't simply Lermontov's fault, it's the result of irreconcilable desires within herself. Moira Shearer, a professional ballerina, brings authentic dance technique to the role. Her performance in the ballet sequences demonstrates genuine artistry, making Vicky's obsession believable. Anton Walbrook's Lermontov is one of cinema's great Svengali figures, manipulative and demanding yet genuinely committed to artistic excellence. The film's influence extended far beyond dance films. Its use of color, its merging of reality and fantasy, and its treatment of artistic obsession influenced directors from Martin Scorsese to Brian De Palma. The central question, what price are you willing to pay for your art, resonates across all creative disciplines. Number 2. Trainspotting, 1996. Danny Boyle's Trainspotting announced a new era in British cinema. Based on Irvin Welsh's novel, the film follows Mark Renton, Ewan McGregor, and his friends through Edinburgh's drug culture. But this isn't a cautionary tale about addiction's dangers. Instead, Boyle creates a visceral, darkly comic exploration of disaffected youth in Thatcher's Britain. The film's opening sequence establishes its approach. Renton sprints through Edinburgh streets pursued by security guards while his voiceover declares, "Choose life, choose a job, choose a career. I choose a family, choose a fucking big television, but why would I want to do a thing like that?" This rejection of conventional middle-class values provides the film's thematic foundation. Boyle's visual style combines kinetic energy with surrealist flourishes. The infamous Worst Toilet in Scotland sequence, where Renton retrieves opium suppositories from a filthy toilet bowl, then hallucinates diving into clean water, demonstrates the film's willingness to visualize addiction's allure alongside its degradation. The film doesn't moralize about drug use. Instead, it shows why people choose heroin despite knowing its consequences. The ensemble cast creates distinct characters within the group dynamic. Robert Carlyle's Begbie, a violent alcoholic who despises drug users despite being far more dangerous than any of them, embodies toxic masculinity and working-class rage. Ewan Bremner's Spud, a hapless addict whose job interview on speed becomes one of cinema's great comic sequences, provides pathetic comic relief. Johnny Lee Miller's Sick Boy, obsessed with Sean Connery and his own perceived superiority, represents ambition curdled by limited opportunity. The film's treatment of AIDS and the death of a baby from neglect refuses to sanitize addiction's consequences. Yet these tragic elements coexist with genuine humor and camaraderie. The film recognizes that even in desperate circumstances, friendship and humor persist. The soundtrack, curating tracks from Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, New Order, Underworld, and Blur, became as influential as the film itself. The music doesn't merely accompany scenes, it creates emotional and cultural context, unlinking the characters' experiences to broader youth culture movements. The film's ending remains controversial. Renton betrays his friends, stealing drug money to start a new life in Amsterdam. The final voiceover, "I'm going to be just like you, the job, the family, the fucking big television," suggests capitulation to the values he earlier rejected. Yet this ambiguity is precisely the point. The film offers no easy answers about recovery, redemption, or the possibility of escape from economic and social circumstances. Trainspotting revitalized British cinema commercially and artistically. Its international success proved British films could compete globally without compromising their distinctly local perspectives. The film's influence extends across contemporary cinema, from its visual style to its soundtrack-driven energy to its frank depiction of drug culture. Number 1. Kes, 1969. Ken Loach's Kes represents British cinema at its most uncompromising. Released in 1969, the film follows Billy Casper, David Bradley, a working-class boy in a Yorkshire mining town who finds brief purpose training, a kestrel hawk. This simple story becomes a devastating critique of British class structure and educational systems that discard children before giving them opportunity. The film's authenticity derives from Loach's casting and directorial approach. David Bradley was a non-professional actor cast from local schools. His performance lacks theatrical polish, which makes it profoundly truthful. Billy isn't a conventionally sympathetic protagonist. He's dirty, inarticulate, and frequently disobedient. Yet Bradley makes us understand Billy's situation, a boy already written off by every institution meant to help him. Loach's direction emphasizes documentary-like realism. The school scenes capture institutional cruelty with anthropological precision. Teachers humiliate students, physical punishment is routine, and education focuses on maintaining discipline rather than fostering curiosity. The PE teacher, Brian Glover, himself a former teacher, playing out football fantasies using students as pawns, represents authority figures more interested in their own gratification than students' well-being. The film's centerpiece, Billy training the kestrel, provides the only moments of genuine beauty and purpose in his life. Loach films these sequences with patience, allowing us to observe Billy's growing competence and confidence. When Billy explains to his class how he trained the hawk, using proper technical terminology and demonstrating real knowledge, we see briefly what he might have become with proper support. The film's ending is devastatingly simple. Billy's brother Judd, Freddie Fletcher, angry at Billy for a minor slight, kills the kestrel. Billy's response, tearful rage, burying the bird, then returning to his empty house, offers no resolution or hope. The film suggests that talent, dedication, and even brief happiness cannot overcome systemic failures that write off working-class children. Chris Mengus's cinematography captures the Yorkshire landscape's austere beauty while never romanticizing poverty. The rows of identical terraced houses, the slag heaps, the industrial decay, all create a landscape where futures are determined by circumstance rather than ability. What makes Kes the greatest British film isn't technical innovation or historical importance. It's moral courage. Loach refuses to offer false hope or suggest individual effort can overcome structural inequality. Billy's story isn't unique. The film implies thousands of children face identical circumstances with identical outcomes. The film's influence extends beyond cinema into British cultural consciousness. Kes articulated working-class experiences rarely depicted with such authenticity. Its impact on British social realism was profound, inspiring directors like Mike Leigh, Shane Meadows, and Andrea Arnold. More than 50 years after its release, Kes remains devastating because the conditions it depicts persist. Our educational systems still fail working-class children. Poverty still limits opportunity, and children still discover brief moments of beauty and purpose before circumstances crush them. Kes doesn't offer solutions or easy comfort. Instead, it demands we witness Billy's experience and recognize our complicity in systems that create such waste. That uncomfortable confrontation, more than any technical achievement or narrative innovation, makes it British cinema's greatest achievement. These 15 films represent more than British cinema's greatest achievements. They represent cinema's capacity to challenge, inspire, and transform. From the psychological depths of Peeping Tom to the epic grandeur of Lawrence of Arabia, from the dark comedy of Kind Hearts and Coronets to the unflinching social realism of Keys, our British filmmakers demonstrated that national cinema could compete with Hollywood while maintaining distinctive voices and perspectives. The greatest British films share common characteristics: moral complexity that resists easy answers, visual sophistication that serves narrative rather than spectacle, and willingness to depict British society with honesty rather than nostalgia. They represent different eras, genres, and approaches, yet all demonstrate cinema's unique power to reveal truths about human experience. These films continue to influence contemporary cinema, not through direct imitation, but through the standards they established. They prove that commercial success and artistic integrity need not conflict, that genre films can explore profound themes, and that regional perspectives can achieve universal resonance. And the question isn't whether these are the 15 greatest British films. Any such list invites debate. The question is whether we recognize what makes these films essential: their refusal to compromise vision, their commitment to authenticity, and their understanding that cinema's greatest power lies not in offering escape,